Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name is as pompous and extravagant as its name. It's a Yakuza game, not a subtle interplay about human atrocities. You could go into it expecting something else, but that's like thinking tornadoes hate cows. It's just stupid. Yakuza is about ramming the hardest part of your body into the softest part of theirs until someone's unconscious, singing karaoke, and then rubbing everybody down with cologne called respect and honor, so they occasionally are reminded to talk about it. It's helping out some homeless man so he can get more alcohol. It's feeding someone who loves buns stuffed with meat even more. All as you wreathe yourself in blue fire and rabbit punch someone in the kidneys, then use that person to knock out a lion or a tiger. That's how you know it's Yakuza. Kiryu is the star once again, though an unwanted one, a man who's faked his own death and changed his name to escape his past and keep those that he loved alive. Through a series of unfortunate events, though, he has to go to work, hoping that no one recognizes the dragon. Make sure to subscribe and check the notify all bell. Now, the first moment you step into each location, Like a Dragon as a series has always been considered damned impressive in its delivery. It's like walking into your own house for the 67th or 77th time and still saying, hot damn, this is awesome. No matter what game it is or where it is in the series, it's hard to not be impressed. There's an intricacy in all of the architecture with varying degrees of signage and neon, lights, glitz, and glamour that adds depth to the world. Even stairwells that you can't go down are at least there. And there's this mimicry of a living, breathing place and depth. And that means places you can't go to still in some way look like other people might be there. The pedestrians moving around alone or in groups, the pairings of safety and danger, with roving bands of street thugs from other families always ready to tip their hand and try to take you on. It's that dichotomy between all of these feelings that has consistently worked in all the Yakuza games. The same goes for the newer locations here, like the castle, a massive fighting palace arena in a unique location, as well as some other districts and cities. Be aware that at this time I was surprised to find there were no graphics options on the PS5 between quality and performance, so you can't get a higher frame rate and lower texture quality, or vice versa. What is such a great deal in the Yakuza games, though, is that every city block just looks incredible. Store shelves are fully realized down to the noodle, next to the fish, next to the sweet and sour candies, or alcohol. It has a feeling of depth from the start to the finish, and no matter what you're exploring within Yakuza, that continues to be reflected. But where Yakuza's strength lies, and it never takes shortcuts, is the animations for all of the cutscenes, and the integrations into the gameplay usually are fully drawn out. You never see a character just flick over to another part of a scene to cut the animation set. Instead, you slowly stand up, nod, then walk around the debris in a level to face off against the main boss. And it just fulfills this almost unspoken desire from gamers to see the full movements, to feel like the character all the time is there and interacting, and not a cut here, cut there, then go back. The same is in the fight scenes as well. The Yakuza style of full force mended with excellent animations, no matter what you're doing. Smashing someone in the head with a lamp, grabbing someone perfectly and hammering punches into their face like you want to put the coins back in a one-armed bandit feels violent, visceral, and very real. Except for the camera. The camera at times has more issues than I've seen in the other Yakuza games. Whether that's a situation in this game engine or just the way battles ended up playing out, not 100% sure, but I did notice it. If you want to learn more about the devs' world building across different games, check out my behind the scenes video creations where I walk through a game world and explain how they made it with a lot of developer input on the card here. But speaking of walking, that is just not your style in these games. He runs directly into trouble, and then the somewhat safe job that goes to crap instantly results in him finding himself mired once again in the world's seedy activities, which we're going to talk about now. The loop to the game is a mixture of main and side quests, as well as Yakuza's strange side activities. Here, working for an underground network of the downtrodden, joining fight clubs and dating FMV ladies. Think of that last part as a far prettier version of the FMV Sega CD game Sewer Shark. In a glorious combination like chocolate and peanut butter smashed into the top of some ice cream, the first time I played it, I was like, this is weird, and then ended up really liking it. And that wonky bit to the stories continues. It's half of the fun, and especially in the activities for the underground network, helping the impoverished. As more jobs are taken and done, the more informants you get for larger jobs. It also gives you points that you can use in a store directly related to this sort of underground. Investigating the business adds items, giving you more points for helping enemies, and it's all this continual loop. Admittedly, like all of these titles, your investigative tools narrowly fit the category beating the shit out of mobile clues until they spill the truth, though. And to do that, you have two arts, Agent and basically Classic, with the latter littered with moves, brutal as they are enjoyable to pull off, and the former an odd mix of almost special moves mixed with basic martial arts attacks. But think of them a little bit more as 1v1, and then the other is a group controlling style a bit, dropping drones into the enemy groups and then breakdancing the face off of an enemy who's probably just hanging out eating some soy chips, minding his own business until you show up. For a game so brutal, it always has that edge of humor with it. The combo system here is not as fully fleshed out as some of the other games, and more so than one or two of them. It's a combo system that lets you chain moves, dodge, block, employ burn meters, stun enemies, get stunned yourself, and later on call in those drones and other odd special moves that you grab or buy or learn from the denizens of the city. Equipment can also be unlocked and outfitted to add to defenses, offenses, resisting particular attack types, and more, and those are usually under your clothes, so you can have a good mix of defensive and offensive capabilities with these items, but still look as cool as you want to look, or as dorky. One area of particular note is the secondary art called Agent also has a magic lasso to whip and grab the enemies. The ability to use your new magic lasso to grab items within the game world lets you actually perform some quests. What makes you start to wonder if everyone in the game world is just throwing their crap everywhere. I mean, you're going to be walking around lassoing shoes and soccer balls, dinner plates, cats. Well, not the last one, but all those other ones. It's an odd inclusion, but it works because like past Yakuza games, they just pretend it's normal. And after a while, it begins to feel that way. That is why Yakuza gets away with all of these odd different gameplay systems put together, because they just make you feel like, yeah, makes sense. You have a magic lasso. While I won't talk about it too much, this also goes for the Fight Club, where you can hire and befriend other fighters going into fights single or in groups in tournaments and raise your bond with them, fighting continually or buying them items. While the Yakuza games have always been about immersion into a unique life, a life bigger and bolder than the protagonist should have, and yet them handling it in such a way that they just seem to rise to the occasion. The one part that the man who erased his name felt like it stumbled a little bit was the story beats. It's hard to get a good story when you know the start and somewhat end of a character, and then they're sandwiched in narratively. We see that somewhat in this game, as well as, let's say, Assassin's Creed Mirage. It can feel like we don't need to know the direction someone's going because we already know the destination. But Yakuza continues to try to excel at the part that says, yeah, we all know where we're going, but it is the journey that matters. One saving grace to this is that the Yakuza games bring in new characters consistently, and here they're interesting. They bring them in almost effortlessly, some would say at times carelessly, but the entire pattern returns, with new bosses, organization leaders, over-the-top attitudes, and under-the-top deals. It's just that occasionally you're like, where was this guy the entire time? And one of the major components of these introductions is the audio, the voice, the sound, music, everything together. Be aware there's no dub, so it's all subtitles and native language currently in this game. So there's a huge amount of non-voice content. It could be a lack of any dubs that makes this a bit more noticeable in this game, especially when taking on missions and going through the interlude discussions, then diving into a full description of an investigation, and then the steps of an investigation, and that can feel a bit stretchy. Sound is still an arcadey high saccharine sound that the Yakuza game series consistently presents, almost arcade-like chirps and bings and clangs as you move around the world and even in some of the fights. And this is where, once again, they show excellence. That juxtaposition, that jarring bit of musical identities instead works as another storytelling device. The violence against the saccharine, the Yakuza stylings and the normal man inside, the busyness of the city and the quietness of the civilians, the rich running the fight clubs and the poor in the networks you help to investigate and find success for in life. I just love how well they did this. And they did the same thing in the music. A bit of wailing guitars, tunes that sound like they're from old Sega Saturn racing games, and then more subdued pieces when men are being men and reminding each other of how honorable everyone is right before someone tries to punch a third orifice into somebody with a tanto. Gone for the most part are some of the rough musical transitions that occurred in the last game. They still pop up here, but there's many a bit that has a bit of a lull before beginning, and some of those tracks seem a bit better mixed, so that, for instance, you come out of a huge fight scene and the game pauses just a bit before an acoustic guitar opens up and begins the next song. It just feels a little bit smoother. And smooth is the name of the game here, taking all of this and putting it together and talking about the fun factor. You bet, Yakuza is worth getting right now, Game Pass or otherwise. Here's why for me. Even with a somewhat shorter game, a bit around 20 hours for the main story, but much longer if you engage in Yakuza's consistently hilarious side activities, the game's a tighter package-in story, though it has a couple bumps. That helps it be more impactful than some other titles in the series. Longer, and it would have stretched and felt almost slightly like the smaller cast wasn't able to fulfill it. But the new introductions and characters and all those mini side games continues to impress. It's probably Kiryu that feels just so good. A child in a man's body, stuck in some cosplay event in his mind, then decided, you know what, let's make it real. So he changed a couple letters in his name, put on some Clark Kent glasses, and then promptly goes undercover in the one place pretty much everybody knows him. Gutsy? Sure. But Kiryu's like the avatar of big balls. He's probably bravery's spirit animal. And no matter what's going on, there's this undercurrent of enjoyment that he always portrays. A guy who says, nah, I don't want to play in a street pickup game. So folks beg him to enter. And when he does, you find out he's been doing YouTube trick shots for the last 4 years. Something that I feel like when I'm playing, I actually needed all along. Because fun doesn't always have to be about long draw distances and massive boss enemies. Sometimes it's a gold fleck designer shirt and John Travolta's suit from Staying Alive kicking the crap out of everybody. Well worth it if you're a fan, and it probably won't change your mind if you're not. Subscribe, hit the notify all bell. We got a ton of videos coming. You can see some of them in the cards here. Peace out, gang gang.